While any support when it comes to major third-party developers is always appreciated when it comes to a platform, especially with Nintendo platforms that has historically gotten some of the biggest or best third-party games late or not at all, I think that this move with the Nintendo Switch 2 that we're seeing with some of the biggest third-party games at the beginning of the life is a changing sign for what's going to happen in the future historically with Nintendo platforms, especially if you're looking at recently with the 3DS and the Nintendo Switch 1 and what Nintendo's had before what's been going on. Now, the Nintendo Switch 1, that was a huge system to kind of show to third parties, especially Japanese developers, that Nintendo can put out a platform that can sell and your games can do well. But I think that a lot of them just took a bit too much time in order to get their engines and stuff ported over, along with the system just not being quite up to snuff what they had plans for with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One period. However, things have completely changed, in my opinion, when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2, because the Switch 2 system is far more capable from what you see from the PlayStation 5 to the Nintendo Switch 2, or even the Xbox Series S to the Nintendo Switch 2 compared to the PlayStation 4 to the Nintendo Switch 1. So we're seeing a lot of high quality ports come out and fans actually be happy and be cool with what's been put out so far from a third-party standpoint. Now, it's not perfect, and there's definitely some things that obviously other systems can do better because they are more powerful, but this is a hybrid system that runs on 10 watts when it comes to portable, and you're going to be able to play games like Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on the platform fully anywhere that you want. And I think that's where the big shift is. Third-party developers, especially developers like Square Enix, are seeing how important that Nintendo is going to be for the future of their company. So they are making more changes, more moves, and more, I would say, initiative to make sure that they get in when it comes to Nintendo fans than they've ever done in the last 20 to 30 years. It's literally been that long. But before we continue on here, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2. So all you got to do to enter is hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed and drop a comment below. I'll be picking a winner randomly once we hit 150,000 subscribers. I'm also giving away a $50 eShop card at the end of this month. Once again, all you got to do is subscribe if you're not already. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell, comment down below, and we're going to have more giveaways throughout each month. So make sure you stay subscribed, watch the videos so you can have a chance to win. Usually we're used to getting side games and other types of things from Square Enix, but now they have committed full support to the Nintendo Switch 2, even with their big lead developer for the Final Fantasy VII Remake project saying, hey, we are going to be there when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Of course, we know about that, but also Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, in addition to Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. And I think that the biggest telling sign of all of this is that for the launch of the game, Mr. Naoki Hamaguchi himself has opted to be at Nintendo New York at an autographing session that instantly sold out. It sold out so fast. And remember, that's from Square Enix. Square Enix has not been making their biggest mainline Final Fantasy games on Nintendo platforms, and that's how excited the fans and of course Square Enix was too to get out there and get in front of Nintendo fans, because they just know with the Nintendo Switch 2, that's going to be one of the major keys for Square Enix to finally sell the amount of copies that they've been wanting to sell. Listen, we all know Final Fantasy is probably going to do best on PlayStation. That's been one of the big areas that it's done well, but there was a noticeable and sharp decline for Final Fantasy games being PlayStation exclusive. Everybody saw that when it comes to the management, when it comes to the fans, and they knew that they needed to make a change. And I think that's why there's been this really hard pivot overall. The coolest thing that I saw on Twitter the other day was Mr. Naoki Hamaguchi actually promoting this on Twitter, saying on January 22nd, we will hold a launch event for Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade at Nintendo New York with support from Nintendo. I'm very grateful for this chance, and I'm excited to meet the fans in person. See you in New York. Square Enix never even thought about doing anything like this for any Nintendo game at any point that I can remember in the last 20, 30 years. Like, it's literally been for forever. Now, they would do all sorts of stuff when it comes to PlayStation overall. Heck, sometimes you even see them on stage when it comes to Xbox. But this is the first time that I've seen them with major Final Fantasy do something like this, or really any of their games. Now, they've done press events for different Nintendo projects here and there, but Final Fantasy getting this this type of event for this release, that is huge. And that shows you what they think. The fact that he decided to take a flight from Japan to meet the fans in person. And I think that Square Enix has big expectations for what Final Fantasy can do on the Nintendo Switch 2 going forward. Now, another thing that I want to highlight, which is just super cool, is the fact that one of my friends, Stealth, he put up the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade initial preload sales with the eShop charts, and it's off to a pretty good start. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is starting off at number 2 and number 4 on the Nintendo Switch 2 eShop, sandwiched in between Donkey Kong Bonanza, Pokemon Legends ZA, and Animal Crossing New Horizons, the upgrade pack. So definitely in high selling and good company there. And then Mr. Hamaguchi himself actually quote tweeted Stealth. So that was just cool. And he said this: Final Fantasy VII Remake is finally launching next week on January 21st. I'm truly grateful for the interest and support from so many Nintendo game fans. The second title, Rebirth, and the final installment will also be coming to Switch 2. I hope you'll join me and experience the conclusion of the Final Fantasy VII story together. So once again, there is a lot of anticipation. There is a lot of hope that Square Enix and Nintendo can work together here to sell Final Fantasy more and sell Final Fantasy where they think it should be selling. I'm not going to sit there and say that it didn't do good on PlayStation, but clearly it wasn't enough, or we wouldn't be getting what they're doing now at this point and them completely changing up their whole business strategy. So this is a huge change, along with something else that I'm going to talk about here when it comes to another major game coming this February for the Nintendo Switch 2 multi-platform third party. So what do you guys think about this with Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade? I think this is the start of us actually getting, when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2, getting Square Enix's best effort first and foremost, and actually getting the big Final Fantasy games, the big Kingdom Hearts games, the big other titles, instead of having to say, is there going to be a cloud version of the game, or are we even going to get the game at all? That was something that we just dealt with when it comes to Square Enix. I think that Square Enix is one of the best developers ever in the history, especially with RPGs, but I do think that they ran into some problems quite a bit, and now at this point they're kind of recovering, but they've got great games. Rebirth is a good game, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is a good game, and Part 3 should probably be the best out of all of them, as they learned from the first part and the second part, and they can put everything they got into the third part. I do like how he did confirm once again that Remake Part 2 and Part 3 with Rebirth and the final installment, they're all coming. So you don't have to worry about not being able to play it if the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be your main platform you want to play the game on. So cool that he quote tweeted Stealth. That is awesome to see a developer like this do that. It's cool that Square Enix would actually approve him doing that, because I think you have to get your social media stuff approved. So I love all of that, and I can't wait to see how Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade does overall on the platform, and of course the other games coming. So what do you guys think about this? You can let me know in the comment section below. But now we're going to move on to part 2 of what I'm talking about when it comes to third-party developers are finally looking, when it comes to Japanese developers at least, are treating Nintendo at least way more on an equal footing here. There could be some more secrets when it comes to Resident Evil with a Nintendo Direct and the Nintendo Switch 2. So shout outs to Genki over on Twitter, and he had this to say: Nintendo usually have a Nintendo Direct in February, and it looks like Resident Evil Requiem will be a part of it. There is a special Switch 2 Pro controller, and Capcom has still not revealed the Resident Evil Requiem amiibo. It seems like they have some sort of marketing deal with Nintendo and are saving the amiibo reveal for the Direct. So recently, they did have a Resident Evil Requiem Direct, or a live stream, where they showed off more of the game. They gave us what the style of the game was going to be, the pacing, the flow, certain weapons, how you fight, more information on Leon, more information on everything with the game. And they just showed off some really cool gameplay. It looks great. I didn't need to watch too much of it, just because I'm already sold on this. I have the triple pack with the Nintendo Switch 2 version all locked up, ready to go. Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, and Final Fantasy 9 Requiem all locked in that big triple pack. I don't know about the Pro Controller. I don't know about the amiibo. I might get those, I might not. But what Genki's saying here does seem to be correct, because if they were going to talk about it more, they could have talked about it at that event, and they did not. We still don't know what those other amiibo are going to be when it comes down to that, and the game is coming out next month. The game will be out in about a month or so. So the fact that they haven't showed off anything, and the fact that Nintendo usually has directs in early February, and the fact that Nintendo loves to show off Resident Evil games at Nintendo Directs. They did it before, and they're probably going to do it again and in the future with Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 Remake, which those games are coming over as well. That leads me to believe that Genki is correct here, and we will see something with Resident Evil at a Nintendo Direct earlier in the month, because the game comes out on February 27th. So if you want to show off something with an amiibo, you want to get people's pre-orders, you want to get more people to pre-order the game, you don't want to have a direct so close to it if you're going to have another announcement. So that leads me to believe that the direct will be in early February. I think it's going to be before Mario Tennis Fever, which is on February 12th, and before Resident Evil Requiem, which is on February 27th. So I would pencil it in, guys. Now, sure, it might not happen, but to me, it seems like Nintendo would probably want to have a Nintendo Direct before some of these big games are coming out. And just remind people, once again, with games like Pragmata, Resident Evil Requiem, show off that amiibo, show off that controller again. All of that. Anything else that they want to talk about, they can do that. Monster Hunter Stories 3, they can talk about that game more. That's coming out March. There's a lot of great Capcom games coming out overall, and the Nintendo Direct would be a good time to just give us a refresher, and of course any other information that they wanted to provide with that in the slew of different games that they're going to have. So very excited to see what they do here for the amiibo and Resident Evil, and I'm just excited because this is what I meant when it comes to Nintendo taking third-party more seriously and third-party developers taking Nintendo more seriously. It seems like they finally turned a leaf a bit. You can't sit here and tell me that they did this before with the Nintendo Switch 1, because they didn't. Everything was late. Everything was a bit crustier looking. Everything was not built and customized enough for the Nintendo Switch 1 hardware. But I think Nintendo took feedback, third-party developers took feedback, and they said, hey, we're going to do this right this time around. And you're seeing that because within a year of the Nintendo Switch 2's launch, we already have significantly more third-party support and significantly higher quality, better reviewing, better selling, I would say, to third-party support than we ever got in the first number of months of the Nintendo Switch 1, where the biggest games were like Disgaea 5 and what was it, Doom 2016 and Skyrim. Great games overall, but just nowhere near exciting, in my opinion at least, compared to Pragmata, Monster Hunter Stories 3, Final Fantasy 7 Remake Intergrade, Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9. This stuff just kind of blows away what they are doing back then. It was cool for the time, don't get me wrong, in 2017, but this is just significantly better, and that doesn't include all the stuff that we got at launch, like Cyberpunk 2077, and it's into other games that came out afterwards, the AA stuff, Trails in the Sky, Hollow Knight Silksong, Hades 2, and the games that got delayed but should have came out, stuff like Borderlands 4 and Elden Ring. Those are all still coming as well. So there's significantly better, higher quality third-party support than we saw in the first year or so, and we ever could have dreamed with the Nintendo Switch 1. So this is definitely a good thing overall. So what do you guys think about this here? I am on team probably early February Direct. It could be after that, guys. Nintendo does sometimes have Directs in March. That's been a thing. But more recently, it's been February for most of the normal Directs where we don't have like a launch of a system like we had last year in 2025. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. But moving on to more information or potential Nintendo Direct news coming up, Hi-Fi Rush has once again been rated by Peggy, and we saw the rating for it before on older platforms, but now at this point it's been re-rated once again, but with the Nintendo Switch 2 in there. So that once again leads me to believe that there's going to be something to where there's going to be games being announced like the Nintendo Direct, because in this Peggy listing it does say PC. It also says PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox Series. I'm guessing the game is going to come out on Nintendo Switch 1, and then there will be a free upgrade for the Nintendo Switch 2, or the game will be playable on Nintendo Switch 1, and if you play it backwards compatible on the Nintendo Switch 2, it's going to have maybe unlocked frame rate, it's going to run a little bit better, dynamic frame rate, it's going to stay locked at it, so they'll do something. I don't think this game is just a Switch 1 game and there's nothing for the Switch 2. I think there'll definitely be some type of free upgrade or something like that that you can unlock if you buy the game, you just get it automatically. So I would expect that. And Krafton actually paid for this. If you look at the listing, it's Krafton Inc. It's not like you can fake these with Peggy or with ESRB. Anytime that you get one of these official ratings, the company went out there and did it. And they didn't make a mistake. They put the Nintendo Switch 2 on there because you have to pay for this listing. So you have to make sure that it's correct because it's the ratings board. And Peggy can be pretty strict overall in terms of what you're doing there. So yeah, this seems like it's happening. It does seem like a Nintendo Direct announcement is coming with this. And I'm excited to see exactly how Hi-Fi Rush performs on the Nintendo Switch 1 / Nintendo Switch 2. And of course, it was already out available on previous platforms. It's a good game. It's just not my style overall, but I did check it out when it came out on Xbox, I think Series. Yeah, Xbox Series X. I did check it out, but I want to see what other people can do. I want to see the quality of the port. And of course, it's always great to get more high quality, good reviewing games. Hi-Fi Rush was one of the better games that released back in 2023. So of course, you want to see that on platforms like the Nintendo Switch where you can play it anywhere that you want. So we'll see exactly how they get this one done, but it's definitely cool to see. Probably being announced at a Nintendo Direct coming up here. So what do you guys think about Hi-Fi Rush? You can let me know in the comment section below. And for the last topic here, this is something that I wanted to discuss probably in a separate video, but I'm very impressed with what I saw here from the most recent game, Dynasty Warriors Origins. This game, apparently on the Nintendo Switch 2, is pretty close. This is I wouldn't say miracle port or anything like that, but it's significantly better than what was shown at the Nintendo Direct. The Nintendo Direct had it at 30 FPS. We had some reviews, I think even from Nintendo like some of my viewers were saying that they didn't mention that the game actually runs in a performance mode. Now, thankfully, there are people that are uploading footage of the game. I think Switch Up did a review of it. He says that there is a uncapped mode in there that hits 60 or it's well above 30. There's some drops here and there, but it does not feel bad to play. I also looked at the gameplay footage with a direct comparison of performance mode and quality mode with both of the games. Dynasty Warriors Origins on the PlayStation 5 and the Nintendo Switch 2 came away pretty impressed, even with the performance mode versus the PlayStation 5 and the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, sure, if you zoom in and you kind of look and you look at everything, obviously the PS5 is going to look better, but people were expecting a 30 FPS experience on this game, maybe with some dips. And the reason why, even if you don't like Warriors games, that's fine. The fact that the Nintendo Switch 2 can not only handle all of these enemies on screen, all with the AI, all with everything that's happening, and look and perform good, and not be a crusty 30 FPS version with dips, that is very promising for the games in the future, because this is one of the prime type of games that on the Nintendo Switch 1 it would come out and it's crusty looking. It's not necessarily great with these AA-ish or higher end type of games. Not quite the biggest AAA games, but these are the games that sometimes faltered on the Nintendo Switch 1, or you expected them to be better. And I thought this was going to be the same thing here with this game, and it's not. It looks good, it runs good, and now I'm significantly more interested in checking this game out than I was before, because that footage that Nintendo showed at that first time at the Direct did not look as good as what they did here. So when they say the performance or the graphics or the visuals are subject to change, they truly mean that in this case, because from what I've seen here so far, Dynasty Warriors Origins is a good version of the game, and I had a lot of people reaching out to me to tell me about this. So very happy about that. Koei Tecmo mastering the Nintendo Switch 2, or at least trying to here. They've already got a little bit of work. They've had some games released for it, so very excited to see Dynasty Warriors Origins running with the performance mode, running at above the 30 FPS, looking sharp, and doing the best that they can considering you're on a 10-watt system overall, and a system that's not as powerful as the other ones, but can be taken anywhere that you want. So good sign for the future of other Dynasty Warriors games, but also other big Koei Tecmo games and other big games in general, as utilizing the DLSS and the other technologies of the Nintendo Switch 2 architecture can get you really good results overall. So what do you guys think about everything that we talked about here? I know it was a lot of topics, a lot of different stuff. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.